Hello guys and welcome to week 3. Today we're going to be going over the different object types that you can actually implement into Blender. Um, so let's get started. Um, Obviously right now you can see we have a cube, right? That's the one that is instantly kind of, I guess, instantiated once you get in there. To add an object, there are two ways to do it. Um, the normal way, or the way that most people would probably do it, you'd go up here to this section and go to add, and you can choose any one of these objects to add. So these are the objects we're going to be going over. Um, but for me, the shortcut to do this is called Shift A. So once you do that, you can go into meshes or mesh, um, and this is typically where we go to get our objects, right? So say for instance, like I don't want that. I don't want a cube because I'm not going to be making a cube. Let's say instead I'm going to be making something that's maybe more round, or maybe like something that's made from a pole. So let's say I want to start off with a cylinder instead. The cylinder is kind of jagged, right? Like no one wants to look at that in the rendered. This is the rendered side. No one wants to look at that in the rendered. It seems very, it's not like a pole would be. Um, and going back to our normal solid, what you do if you want to get rid of these jagged lines, you right click and you go to shade smooth, and that will kind of actually get rid of those jagged lines that you see. So to send it back, just hit shade flat and it should go back to the way it was. So yeah, we're just going to be going over the different objects, so I'm going to set them up now for you guys, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay guys, so these are all the objects from the mesh tab that we can play around with. So I'm going to go over some of them, give or take the shapes, right? Most of this I'm not going to go into. These are going to be the more important things that you're going to be dealing with, because these are going to be what you are going to construct most of your um, objects out of Blender with. So on the left right here, first up we have Suzanne. This is Blender's, what's the word? Every 3D modeling software has their own kind of staple character that they have. Blender's is Suzanne. It's just, a monkey head. Um, there is another one. 3ds Max has a teapot. That's the only one I really remember is the teapot one. But Blender's is Suzanne. So next up we have the cylinder, which we just went over. Um, Third, we have the icosphere. This is very similar to a sphere. Yeah, this is very similar to a sphere. And you can, again, remember when I told you Photoshop, it's built up like layers. You can actually see everything that is inside the scene here. So this is the icosphere, and this is the sphere. Main difference between the two is this has less faces than this one, so it um, takes up less processing power to actually render this than it does this. Um, Again, it doesn't look as pretty, but if it works, it works. Um, Next up, we have the circle. This one is not actually filled in. Um, and then we have the plane. We have the cube, which we went over. We have a cone, and we have a torus, which is like a donut shaped object. Um, and these are all the objects that we have to start out with inside of mesh. Um, Now we can go on and look down, and we can go into curve, and these are all paths essentially. So let's say I wanted to do maybe like a wire or a hose. You could definitely go to curve and use like a Bezier curve, right? And inside of the curve, you could go to the curve object, go into data, geometry, and we can extrude. Actually, we could do a make the object round, or we could copy an object based off of our scene. So let's say I want it 1 meter in diameter. Okay, we could go a little smaller. Do 0.25. There you go. So this is how I would do a wire, or some sort of like tube maybe, something like that. And you can also set up a profile for it. So as you can see, this diagonal profile is one side of the tube. And there are different presets here, so you could change them to like molding and stuff along those lines. So if you're building like a house or something, you can do stuff like that. Um, I don't really get into Surface or Meatball as much. I haven't really seen anyone really play around with those things. Um, but text can be um, interesting. So you just import the text and then. So to edit the text, you have to actually go into edit mode. And then once you're in edit mode, which you just press tab to go into edit mode, you can edit whatever the text, whatever you want the text to say. So for me, I'm just going to say like hello. And we can actually edit this, have it extrude so it's kind of a little thicker. Set it to 0.2. And we can also edit the text on curve. So I just applied this text to this Bezier curve that we created, and it's kind of a little lopsided looking. There you go. Next up, we have armature. I won't get into this until later in the course, but armature is the best way to explain it is it's just the skeletal, um, it's just the bones of the object that you want to create. So let's say we make a ball and we put that ball, we want to have animate that ball and we want to deform the ball, right? So we would put this inside of the ball. Let's shade the ball smooth so it looks a little nice. I want to be able to see through the ball so I can see the object, make sure we're doing it correctly. I'm going to scale this up, going to edit mode and scaling this object. So this is what you're going to want to do. Oh, it's in Control P. Okay, so Control P to set the parent, because we want to parent our object to the skeleton structure, right? We're going to do armature deform with automatic weights. That will set the object to the roughly the correct amount of weights. And then we're going to go into pose mode because we want to pose it, right? Because we're trying to animate. And now that I grab the skeleton structure, I actually grab the ball at the same time because the ball is parented to the skeleton. You can also, I believe I can rotate it. And let's say I wanted to shrink it down and try and put more skeleton structures in here. There we go. I have to reparent it. Control P with automatic weights. Try that. There we go. So now that we have our new skeleton, we press Control P and pair with automatic weights. And now that the skeleton has been edited to have more um, separate skeleton structures, we can actually deform it now. So look, kind of like, it's kind of like moving around a little bit. And we can actually animate this to do different things, to make like squishier things, right? We could shrink it, make that one grow, make this one grow. Maybe if our guy's like angry, we can have it over exaggerate, have him blow up or something. If our guy's just a ball, right? So that covers skeleton structures, and that can be very confusing. So just take your time on it. And it was just a quick overview of a very complicated subject. So don't feel like if you didn't understand it, um, that you won't get it. It's a completely fine. And we'll go over it in the future. Next up, we have empty objects. I like to use these for better control of my own objects. So what I'll do, for example, is I'll put an invisible sphere, so you don't even see this. Let's say I wanted to record this cube, right? And I got my camera. I'm bringing my camera over. So I bring my camera over and I'm recording the cube. I think the cube. If you'd like to move the camera within the camera view, you can actually do that. You go to view and then camera to view. And now I have the camera pointing at. I don't like to use it, but I can understand why some people would. It can be easy sometimes to use it that way. So say we're looking at a cube. We like this cube, and we want to get like a panoramic shot of it. Um, what we could do is assign empty an empty sphere to that object. And just for the sake of the video, I'm going to make it fairly big so we can see what's going on. Make sure the object is right. Then I'm going to assign this. I'm going to parent it to the camera. So I shift clicked it. I clicked this, then I shift clicked the camera, and now I'm going to press Control P, and we're going to say set parent to object. Bam. So now the camera is paired to the cube. Yeah. Now the camera is paired to the sphere, right, which is centered around the cube. So now we want to animate. So since we're getting into animating and we're not, modeling it anymore, we go into the animation tab, right? Our camera, it's looking at the cube. We want the camera to look at the cube, but we want it to be panoramic. To insert keyframe, we're going to go 20 seconds into the future, and I'm going to want this object. I want to rotate it. I want to rotate it on the Z axis, that is up, and I'm going to move the camera. So make sure when you're doing this that this object, the camera, that the first one that you hit is going to be the child. The second object that you hit is going to be the parent. So make sure when you go to do this that the parent is the sphere, not the camera, because if the camera is the parent, then it rotates around in the opposite direction. So now that we've got where we want our sphere to be, we're going to want to rotate on the z-axis, like which I was saying, which is up, and then we're going to turn it, let's just say, right here. And then we're going to press I to keyframe it, and we're going to do location, rotation, and scale. And there we go. So now we have an animation. Let's set our end frame to frame 25, so there's a little bit of space between. And if we play it, we get to see that the camera rotates around the cube, but the sphere isn't being rendered as a renderable object. You can also import images. I'll show you how to do this in the future. This will be good for references. So moving on to lights, we have 4 different lights. We have the area light. This is kind of mainly what I see people use these for are fill lights. They're pretty good for fills. This is point light. This is the one that I believe you start with. Yeah, I believe that's a point light. Yeah, that's a point light. Then we have sun, which radiates outward rather than at a specific direction. And then we have, I believe this is spotlight. Yeah, we have spotlight, which could be used for like actual lights. Like, say you have a lamp and you want to pretend that that lamp is actually producing light, you would use this light. Really, you could use any light depending on how you wanted to set your scene up. Moving on, we have our cameras, which is just like I showed you earlier. You can have separate cameras and you can switch from the different cameras, which is really interesting. Speaker and force field. So these force fields, you can, for instance, you can do wind, and we could set up a cloth texture on something, and we can have that cloth texture thing blow in the wind like a flag. And that's going to be all the objects for this video. We went into all the different ones that you can do, and all the different like lines, the meshes, text. We didn't go into grease pencil. Grease pencil is like a 2D version of Blender. Yeah, it's pretty neat, but we're not going to go over it for the sake of this tutorial, just because there's so much you can get into when you get into Blender. You can do video editing, you can do so much stuff. And I kind of want it to be kind of comprehensive, so it's slightly easy to understand without being too overwhelming. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in week 4. Bye.